At 18 years old, I was a war correspondent in the United States Marine Corps, and my job was to study men and women who could accomplish some pretty amazing things. For years, I traveled with them to more than 24 countries, living with them and fighting alongside them, studying the people, the cultures, and the movements that we encountered. And I began to notice some patterns emerge. That throughout history, organizations had inspired people to do some pretty amazing things. They had inspired people to give up their time, their money, and even their security for a cause. I saw that every day when I was on the battlefield in Iraq. But it didn't just happen there. These organizations had inspired freedom riders to go into the rural South and register black voters. They had inspired people to march on their nation's capital to advocate for their rights. They had even inspired a lone man to stand down a tank in Tiananmen Square. These organizations, like the Marine Corps, were using a method, a formula that allowed them to tap into the very things that make us human in order to turn their missions into movements. I call it the ENSO effect, and an ENSO is a circle that represents how we can track the creation of any movement, and also a map for how we can create our own. You see, movements are built on the very things that make us human. Each of us is composed of cells that independently operate inside of our bodies, but yet come together to form organs, nervous systems, even skin tissue. At the most basic level, we want to be part of something greater. But it goes deeper than that. Our brains are full of mirror neurons that allow us to empathize and connect with people outside of ourselves. That when a spider crawls up someone's arm and you see the reaction on their face, and the hair on your arm stands up, maybe you start to jump around a little in your chair. Yeah, mirror neurons, they've allowed us to survive for a millennia, but they've also helped us to thrive because it works for positive attributes as well. When we see someone who is passionate, dedicated, making a positive change in the world, that makes us want to be part of something greater too. That is why decades after Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech, we still listen to his words in our homes, in our workplaces, and even in our schools. Words that inspire us to bring our dreams into reality. But without understanding how a mission becomes a movement, it often takes generations and a lot of bloodshed for this biology to create the kind of social change we're talking about. So how are organizations, how are the people you've seen in this room today speeding up that process and creating movements that occur within a single lifetime? I found out from my travels and from my studies that they're actually modeling social evolution. You see, movements and evolution both start with the same thing. They start with a good idea. And nature knows that a good idea today is not going to be a good idea tomorrow. So it doesn't build things for what happened. It builds things for what's going to happen. Organizations are tapping into this. They're creating unified visions. They're creating causes. They're creating just what I simply refer to as a mission. A mission is a vision of a better world that each of us can step into. They get that it's not what they're selling that we're going to buy. Nobody buys the wonderful taste of asparagus. They buy the health that's the result of it. They buy the fact that they get to contribute to a local economy and an agricultural community. Organizations have figured out that it's what they communicate about a better world as the result of what they sell. That is what we buy. It's very interesting that they're actually engaging us emotionally with their mission in order for us to create something greater, in order for us to improve. They're tapping into the fact that as humans, we develop the ability to react to changes in our environment. It gets cold, so we move south. Well, maybe not in Canada, but it happens. You guys are smart, though, because we've also developed the ability to improve ourselves and adapt to environmental changes. We make warm clothes. We figure out new ways to provide heat. That way, we provide a better future, a better environment for future generations to be born into, ensuring the survival of our species. Organizations get this. They're using it to engage us emotionally, to create movements. Now, it's the size of this initial mission that decides how big a movement is going to become. The problem with some missions is that they're too small, and that people actually achieve them, and then they fizzle out. A local example might be, we're going to be the best little law firm in Chatham. Now, they may accomplish that goal, but let's compare that with the mission of the International Court of Justice, to settle differences so that international peace is not endangered. You notice the difference between the two of them? It's not just the international court's mission that's going to turn it into a movement, but it is that little law firm's mission that's going to prevent it from ever becoming one. With a mission that engages people, you can create the seed of a movement. But people need a way to take action on that. They need a way to bring it into reality, because without it, a mission is just a dream, something buried on a company website or inside of a book. But if you can give people a way to take immediate and measurable action, what I call a rallying cry, then you can give them a way to bring your mission into reality. A rallying cry taps into another basic need we have, and that's to take action on improving ourselves and our world. I've been in combat zones and disaster areas all over the globe. I've seen what happens when we remove social restrictions from people, when there's no government or police force to hold them accountable. If it was true that we were animalistic and only concerned with our own survival, then chaos would be the rule in those areas. But what I experienced was the opposite. I saw tribes that had been at war for eons come together to share resources, to rely on each other's skills, to keep each other alive and going, so the next generation would have something to depend on, to come into. It didn't really matter what they were facing. They realized that by taking action in small ways, they could build toward their own survival. Their environment had defined their mission: surviving an invading military, surviving the aftermath of a hurricane. But the movement that they built with simple action, with one rallying cry, it was to literally rebuild their world. We see rallying cries in effect every time we turn on the television. Remember the last commercial you saw that advocated for ending homelessness or world hunger or animal abuse? Each of them incites us emotionally with pictures, a vision of how things are. And then they, with their mission, paint a better vision of a world to come, a world that we could be part of if we chose to. But the commercial doesn't end there, does it? No, they say, pick up your phone, give us your support, give us your time. Barring all that, we'll take your credit card. Yeah. Your rallying cry could be to do business in a new way. It could be to canvass a neighborhood for ballot signatures. It could be to encourage sustainable local agricultural economies. But no matter what your rallying cry is, if you give people a way to bring that emotion that they're feeling out into the world, those who align with you will be drawn in like magnets. My rallying cry was to sign on the dotted line, to join the United States Marine Corps. They were really good at what they did. They taught me what I'm teaching you. After you have a rallying cry, you have supporters. But it takes more than supporters to build a movement. It takes a tribe. And in order to build a tribe, you have to build trust. Trust is another unique thing that's built into us. This desire to come together as teams to accomplish greater things than we ever could on our own. When we come together as teams, an endorphin is released into our bloodstream, a natural high, a reward for working for the common good. When we perform those same activities on our own, no endorphin release. So again, at a fundamental level, we're built to work together. And in order to do that, we have to have trust. So in the organizations around the world that I tracked, that I studied, I see how trust allows you to ask people to do some pretty amazing things. Because of trust, I saw men and women walk into death time and time again. Walk into a city full of heavily armed militants that wanted nothing more than to kill every last one of them. These men and women did it joyously because they trusted their leaders. They trusted that the message they were being given was accurate, that their lives would be valued, and that their leaders would often be at the head of the pack, leading the charge. I asked myself, what is it that develops trust inside of organizations and inside of movements? And it was a survey that gave me the answer. Gallup conducts a poll on the American people every so often, wanting to know what is the most trusted institution in the United States. And time again, it has not been the police. It has not been the government. It has not been business. The most trusted institution in America is the military. This strikes me as a little odd because the military is the only one on that list trained to kill everybody else. But yet the American people trust them more than any other institution. Why is that? I discovered it was because the American military is congruent about the messages that it sends. The American military does the same thing for its employees, the service members, as it does for its clients, the American people. It protects, serves, cares for, educates, provides a high quality of life for both parties, and even its retirees, its veterans. The most engaged organizations on the planet are doing the exact same thing. If your movement is to encourage people to buy locally, do your supporters have access to that food? Or is it easier for them to go shop at the big box stores? If your movement is to encourage people to create music, are you teaching them how to do it, or are you just giving them CDs and educating them on the wonderful traditions we have of music? Now, the engaged movements that I witnessed, they did the same thing for their employees as they did for their clients. And that does provide an extremely high level of engagement. And we know how valuable that is, but how many organizations are actually using engagement as a rule? How many times have you been asked to do something that had no connection to the mission you signed on for? I know I've worked in an office for 8 hours a day, and it felt like I was just filing TPS reports and unclogging paper jams the whole time. All right? You can't be engaged and inspired like that, not unless you can connect exactly what you're doing, every single task, with the greater mission you signed on for. And if you can do that, well then you've tapped into what these movements are doing next. They're marking a clear difference between inspiration and motivation, and they're choosing to inspire their people. Motivation is how most employers get things out of their employees. It's how most leaders get things out of their followers. It's do this or these bad things will happen. Unfortunately, that only works as long as that motivating force is present. As soon as the boss leaves, as soon as the leader's out of the room, people go right back to their baseline. Now, when I go into organizations to track how businesses are creating multinational movements, I often hear about leaders speaking of employees as cancers in the company. These leaders don't know how right they are, but they also don't know how responsible they are for creating that cancer. And they don't know how they can cure it. Each of us in our own bodies, did you know we cure cancer every single day? Each of us has cells inside of us that go off the reservation. They become aberrant. They pose a threat to the whole. And our immune system sends out a response, gets rid of the cells before they really create a problem. The only thing that stops that from happening is if our cells disguise themselves or if the immune system fails. Then you have the type of cancer that kills. In an organization, a cancerous employee is just like that. Left unchecked, the disengagement spreads, and it costs a lot of money. But what most organizations do to treat it is they don't just attack the cells that are becoming problems. They go after every employee. They tell all of them, do this or these bad things will happen. Do this or you'll be fired, or the company will fail, or you'll end up living in a van down by the river. All right? I've heard it said. And again, that only works as long as that motivating factor is there. But what the organizations that are creating movements are doing is something different. They're inspiring their employees. They're saying, complete this task, and here's the good that will come of it. Here's how much closer we will be to achieving our mission, our global mission that you can be involved in. So no matter what these people are doing, these supporters, whether they're cleaning toilets, emptying trash cans, or speaking at the United Nations, they understand how what they're doing is contributing to the greater good. The most engaged organizations constantly look at the tasks they're asking their followers to complete. Is this task leading us to our mission? Is it creating a movement that people can believe in, support, and even buy from? If it's not, then they really weigh whether it's more important to have a passionate, dedicated supporter or a perfectly organized filing system. They're not mutually exclusive, but it's a choice that has to be made. So if you've come this far, if you've gotten that emotionally engaging mission, if you've given people a rallying cry, if you've inspired their trust, then you've inspired them to continuous action, you've created something extremely unique in the world. You've created a movement, something capable of making political, social, or economic change. But then what happens? The very best movements don't stop there. They actually continue on this evolutionary pattern. They themselves evolve. It takes a lot of work to build the kind of momentum to make the worldwide change that everyone in this room supports in one way or another in your own lives. It takes a lot of work. These organizations don't let that work die on the vine. They shift. The mission might remain the same, but the movement changes. It gets bigger. It moves on to the next task. The civil rights movement ended segregation in the United States, but it didn't stop there. It went on. It continued. Equal opportunity in the workplace. The women's suffrage movement gained women the right to vote, but didn't stop there. It went on to ensure that men and women would be paid equally for the same amount of work. It went on to ensure that women in other nations would have the same opportunities as their male counterparts. These movements haven't been achieved yet, but the amount of work it took to gain that initial momentum continues on. You see, movements, the things that we're all committed to in this room, are not just ways for us to move forward in single leaps and bounds. They're actually how we evolve as humans. In the movements that I've seen and participated in more than 24 countries, movements ranging from small business growth to geopolitical change, they all involved individuals and organizations, just like you in this room, running this pattern. They were creating massive change because their people felt engaged, empowered, and supported. They trusted what they were giving their time and their lives to. Movements truly are a deep part of us, built into our DNA, because they are how we evolve. Engage people emotionally around your mission. Give them a way to take action. Engender trust, the kind of trust that builds tribes, and then inspire them to carry that mission beyond you. That's how you take a small idea and create something that changes society, changes history, and changes our world. Thank you.